Paris. Paris est la ville qui nous inspire.
Paris is the city that inspires us. Paris is the city that wakens our senses and our passions. Paris is cosmopolitan and elegant. Paris is a musical and artistic inspiration to all of our cities. Paris is the guardian of culture. Paris is the city that protects the world's imagination. 70 years ago, Parisians were celebrating the liberation of their city from the tyranny of the Nazis. 7 days ago, Parisians were killed by a new group of tyrants. When they attack Paris, they attack all of humanity.
Members of the congressional delegation, distinguished officers, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peter Van Prague, and on behalf of my board of directors and everyone who worked to put on the 7th Halifax International Security Forum, welcome to Halifax. 7 decades ago, Paris was liberated from Nazi tyranny. 7 days ago, Paris was attacked by a new group of tyrants. We meet today in the shadow of that tragedy. Last week's attack on Paris will take all of us, in our different ways, time to heal. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, busy for short. And for whatever reason, probably because her brother and sister are Star Wars fans, Busy's new favorite game is called Bad Guys. It's a simple game that largely consists of her pulling her bed covers over her head and yelling, "Bad guys," when her older brother or sister, or sometimes her mother or father, enter her room. "Bad guys," Busy yells, always giggling, smiling. In too many places, all too often, children have been put in fear of real bad guys. After Paris, we are talking about the Islamic State. After Paris, after the Russian Metrojet bombing over Sinai, after Beirut, after Ankara, after Mali just today, after so many tragedies, no serious person can ignore the threat that the Islamic State poses. After seeing the pictures and hearing the stories from Paris, it is difficult not to feel a certain amount of despair. But we are by no means helpless. It is vital that we acknowledge that this is a winnable war. When nation states coordinate to defeat terrorists and rein in rogue actors, the Islamic State and its psychopathic followers are no match for our collective resources. Leading democracies, such as Canada and its traditional allies, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States, together with NATO, and democracies represented in this room, must lead and coordinate global cooperation to ensure that, upon victory, the post-conflict environment in the Middle East takes on a trajectory toward lasting stability. Strategic and tactical victories in Syria and Iraq will help to stop those who terrorize our local communities. However, ISIS is not the only test that democracies face. 70 years after the Second World War, the global battle for a modern and democratic world continues. The agenda for this weekend here at Halifax addresses the global challenges that our democracies are facing. Today, Russia and China portray themselves as making steady gains, and yet both UN Security Council members bend, if not break, international norms and laws to achieve their goals. Modern technology has the potential to change the way we prosecute our wars, but at the same time has the potential to lead us down a precarious path. Also on the agenda, securing our energy resources and addressing the consequences of climate change. Human trafficking, drug smuggling, and money laundering and the accompanying government corruption affects our security indirectly, if not directly. The Muslim world continues to be a mystery. As President Gül of Turkey writes for our program, quote, It is up to Muslims themselves to undertake a serious reappraisal of their place in history and their place today. And it is up to the rest of the world to question and reappraise their own shortcut perceptions about Muslims." End quote. In too many parts of the world, children live in fear. A fear so deep that parents risk everything that they have to leave that danger behind. We are witness to one of the world's largest mass migrations in history. Last year, more than 60 million people were displaced from Syria, Afghanistan, Eritrea, Nigeria, Pakistan, Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, Gambia, Bangladesh. People are running for their lives. Together, these are issues that we in this room must get right. Unlike my daughter, Busy, who is playing a game, we, as an Alliance for Democratic Modernity entrusted with our children's future, we cannot pull the blankets over our head. Today, 300 participants from over 60 countries are in Halifax to have a real conversation about international security and the challenges facing our nations now and into 2016. In a moment, you will hear from Harjit Sajjan, Canada's new Minister of National Defence and your host for the weekend. But quickly, for those of you who have been here before, you already know that we take pride in creating an atmosphere that provokes serious conversation and debate. I encourage you to help your colleagues and new friends who are here for the first time in any way you can. I've already touched upon the agenda, but I want to thank our agenda working group who worked with us during the summer to ensure all major issues were addressed. In this program, you sure you get a program? In this program, you will find short opinion essays by distinguished authors that set the stage for the plenary panels. They are meant to start the conversation, and without exception, they are excellent. Please take time to read them. This weekend would not be possible without you, our participants. Thank you for making the trip. Thank you, Senator Kane, Senator Barrasso, for coming back to Halifax. Senator Murphy, it is a pleasure to welcome you for the first time. Together, your participation at Halifax is vital. Bill McCaffrey, CEO of Calgary-based Meg Energy, founded the Halifax Canada Club 4 years ago to ensure that industry's ideas for international security are included in the conversations here at Halifax. Thank you. Thank you also, Nancy Southern, CEO of ATCO Group, for your unwavering support. And welcome for the first time, Mr. Ahmet Çağlık, CEO of Istanbul, Turkey-based Çağlık Holding, and our newest member of the Halifax Canada Club. Thank you. Together, the Halifax Canada Club ensures that the work we do here this weekend will continue. Bill, Nancy, and Ahmet will be identified this weekend by their gold lobster lapel pin. If you have a chance, please thank them for their generous support. Thank you to the Government of Canada, the Department of National Defence, and the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, ACOA, for your enthusiastic support. Thank you, General Vance, Chief of the Canadian Defence Staff, for the support of the Canadian Forces. Thank you also to NATO and to Foreign Affairs Magazine, our media partner. Finally, I want to thank members of our Board of Directors for their leadership and for being with us this weekend: Jonathan Weistub, Jonathan Tepperman, David Kramer, and General Counsel Dean Felk. Halifax International Security Forum began as an initiative in 2009 by Peter MacKay when he was Minister of National Defence. Thank you for your vision. And we look forward to presenting our Builders Award to you this evening. As you all know, Canada has a new government, and I welcome Minister of Defence Sajjan and Minister of Veterans Affairs Hare and President of the Treasury Board, Minister Bryson. Thank you for your leadership. I will end where I began. Paris. Paris is the city that inspires us. Paris is the city that dares us to see, to feel, to be passionate. Paris is our aspiration for the role that art and music play in our lives. Paris is the keeper of culture. Paris is the city that protects the world's imagination. When they attacked Paris, they attacked civilization itself. Now civilization will show its resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to welcome to the podium the Honorable Harjit Singh Sajjan, Canada's Minister of National Defence, and your host for the weekend. Minister.
It's truly a privilege to be here. Mayor Savage, ministers, senators, ambassadors, members of the armed forces, distinguished guests from around the world, and Peter, President, thank you so much again. Good afternoon, and welcome to Halifax. Before I begin, I think it's important that we acknowledge the tragedy that hangs over this year's event. In recent weeks, we have been repeatedly shocked and saddened by the utterly heinous attacks that have been committed by ISIS against innocent people. In Egypt, in Beirut, and most recently in Mali today, and just 1 week ago in Paris. The carefully calibrated attacks of Paris, motivated by a twisted ideology and carried out with villainous purpose, have left over 100 families in mourning and a nation in grief. The pain and suffering of last Friday and the attacks that have preceded it continue to resonate around the world. At this gathering, I think it's only appropriate that we take the time to remember the victims of this senseless violence. I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence to honor their memory. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Merci beaucoup. Please be seated. These events have underscored the critical importance of the discussions we are about to have this weekend. In that regard, I'd like to start by thanking the organizers of the 7th Annual Halifax International Security Forum. Your hard work has brought us together to discuss the most pressing security issues of the day and to exchange new ideas and best practices in a spirit of international collaboration and openness. I would also like to acknowledge Peter MacKay, one of my predecessors, and the founding force of this conference. Peter, you can be proud that what you started here will continue on as an enduring pillar of Canada's engagement with the international community. As the Minister of National Defence, I feel truly privileged to take part in this forum, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to meet with all of you throughout this weekend. I'm also grateful to have the opportunity to visit Halifax, because if you don't know, I'm actually from Vancouver, Canada's west coast, a mere 6,000 kilometers from here, to give you a sense of the vastness of our nation. But the great reputation of Halifax extends from coast to coast to coast. It is famous for its maritime hospitality, and I hope that you feel as welcome here as I do. Please enjoy some of the flavor and color of this great city over the course of the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing we can say for certain about the future global security environment, it is that we live in an era of instability, uncertainty, and surprise. The recent cowardly attacks against civilian populations remind us of the complex challenges we face. How do we, as like-minded allies and partners, defend against violence, volatility, when it comes in so many different forms and from so many different places? As someone who has fought in Afghanistan, I have firsthand appreciation for how violence can erupt and for how debilitating it is for a community and for a country. When I look back at my experience, both in the military and in the police force, and then I look at the strategic picture we face, I would suggest that we need to get a better we need to get better at identifying the warning signs early. We need to have the right indicators and the right intelligence. We also need to understand the linkages across the various threat streams, how criminality, oppression, ideology can interact and feed off each other. We need to understand their critical points of convergence and the real targets of vulnerability. Not just vulnerability of failed and failing states, but the vulnerability of youth alienated by a lack of opportunity. And we also need to invest in the bastions of stability and calm so that we are not only fighting a war, but we are actually creating the lasting conditions for peace. Now, this is all easier said than done. And of course, none of this can be done alone. We need to move forward as a collective force. Together, we can leverage our individual experiences and expertise. In fact, the principle of cooperation is based on the acknowledgement that no one country can do everything. Instead, we can each put our own unique skill sets on the table, and we can build upon those strengths. In that vein, I want to reaffirm that the Government of Canada maintains its steadfast commitment to our coalition partners in the fight against ISIS. While we are exploring options to adjust our approach, I can assure you that we want to maximize the use of the Canadian skill set, offer valuable contribution to the coalition effort, and have a truly enduring and meaningful impact on the situation on the ground. Canada can also make a positive and substantial contribution to the refugee crisis. In fact, Canada will soon embark upon one of the most ambitious refugee assistance missions in our history. The Department of National Defence, the Canadian Armed Forces, are working with other key government departments to bring 25,000 refugees to Canada who are fleeing sectarian violence in Syria. We will be helping vulnerable families while maintaining a rigorous screening process to ensure the security of Canadians. I should acknowledge, however, that this is not simply a government effort. While federal departments and agencies like mine are playing a critical coordinating role in this national effort, ultimately Canadian communities across the country will be doing their part to help these people in. We've executed missions like this before, most notably from South Vietnam in the 1970s and the Balkans in the 1990s. And Canadians are proud to do their part again. Canada places tremendous value on collaboration and partnership. And indeed, our Prime Minister has made it a priority across all departments and agencies. My colleagues and I just received our mandate letters outlining what we are to accomplish in our respective portfolios. And all of you also know it's public. As you may know, chief among those priorities in my mandate, I've been asked to produce a new Canadian defense policy. The details have yet to be fleshed out, but I can tell you that this review will be in an open and transparent process. It will include input from across the government, and it will acknowledge the integral partnership that underpin the Canadian Armed Forces' ability to fill its defense mission, both across Canada and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I want to thank you for joining us at this year's forum and for collaborating with us. It stands as a true testament to the strength of our relationships that we can come together like this and have an open and frank debate about some very contentious and sensitive issues. I'm sure there will be moments this weekend where we will have to agree to disagree, but that's okay. The value of this forum is dialogue and debate. So let the dialogue begin. Thank you.